The late spring air in Rosewood, North Carolina, carried a hint of warmth, mingling with the soft hum of conversation and laughter spilling from the Harper family home. The town, with its picturesque streets and tight-knit community, often seemed like the perfect place to build a life. But as the old saying went, appearances could be deceiving. The annual Harper family reunion was in full swing, a tradition spanning generations, held at the stately home of Linda and Thomas Harper, the proud matriarch and patriarch of the Harper family. The house itself was a testament to their southern roots, a sprawling, white-column structure surrounded by manicured lawns and blooming magnolias. Inside, the atmosphere was lively, yet warm, cousins caught up over drinks, children darted between rooms, and the scent of roasted ham and pecan pie wafted through the air. In the kitchen, Anna Harper, the eldest daughter of Linda and Thomas, stood by the sink, gripping a glass of wine. Her dark hair was neatly styled, her makeup subtle yet elegant, a perfect facade for the storm brewing inside her. She had always been the dependable one, the overachiever. But tonight, she felt like an imposter in her own life. Her gaze drifted to the dining room, where her husband, Ryan Harper, charmed a small group with his easy laughter and effortless charisma. He looked every bit the devoted husband, dressed sharply in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled just enough to reveal strong forearms, his wedding ring glinting under the chandelier's glow. To anyone else, Ryan was the embodiment of reliability and warmth, the golden boy who married his high school sweetheart and built a picture-perfect life. But Anna knew better. For months, she had been living with a truth that cut deeper than any wound: Ryan was having an affair. And not just with anyone, but with her boss, Diana Shaw. The name alone made Anna's stomach churn. Diana, a commanding woman with a reputation that preceded her, had always drawn people in like moths to a flame. She was 45, tall and poised, with piercing green eyes that seemed to see through anyone she spoke to. Diana had built her career as the head of Westfield Realty, and Anna had admired her, or at least she used to. The affair had started subtly, stolen glances, shared laughter at company parties, but it quickly escalated. Anna had discovered the truth in the most mundane of ways: a forgotten phone on the kitchen counter, a string of suggestive messages that left no room for misinterpretation. The betrayal had consumed her. At first, she had cried, screamed into her pillow, and thrown herself into work to distract from the pain. But eventually, the raw anguish hardened into something colder. She began to plan. Tonight's family reunion, with everyone gathered under one roof, was the perfect opportunity. Ryan and Diana, both unsuspecting, were about to learn the consequences of their actions. As the chatter in the next room grew louder, Anna straightened her shoulders. Her lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. She could wait a little longer. After all, exposing the truth wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming control of a life that had spun wildly out of her grasp. The storm inside her was ready to break. But for now, she stood in the kitchen, the calm before the chaos. The Harper marriage had once been the envy of everyone in Rosewood. Anna and Ryan had been high school sweethearts, the kind of couple that seemed destined to conquer life together. They met in their junior year at Rosewood High, where Anna was known as the ambitious one, top of her class, president of the debate club, and someone who always had a plan. Ryan, on the other hand, was the charming, easygoing boy with an infectious smile and a natural talent for building things. Their worlds collided when Ryan volunteered to help with a school fundraiser that Anna was organizing. What started as playful banter quickly grew into late-night conversations, long drives, and shared dreams of the future. By the time they graduated, their bond was unshakable. They both wanted success, stability, and a family, and they believed they could achieve it all, together. In 2003, at just 23 years old, Anna and Ryan got married in a modest but beautiful ceremony at Rosewood Baptist Church, surrounded by family and friends. Anna's lace wedding gown, the delicate floral arrangements, and Ryan's heartfelt vows all painted a picture of a love that felt invincible. They bought a cozy home in the suburbs of Rosewood, a two-story craftsman with a wraparound porch and a backyard perfect for the family they dreamed of starting. Anna's career took off quickly. Joining Westfield Realty, the most prestigious real estate firm in town, she proved herself to be sharp, driven, and excellent at matching families with their dream homes. Her clients adored her, and within a few years, she was one of the top agents at the firm. Ryan, too, found success, climbing the ranks as a construction foreman at a local company. He dreamed of starting his own business one day, building homes that would last for generations. For years, their life seemed idyllic. Anna and Ryan supported each other's ambitions, working long hours but always finding time to celebrate their wins, promotions, bonuses, anniversaries. They were the golden couple of Rosewood, balancing work and love with grace. But by 2014, subtle changes began to creep into their lives. Ryan started coming home later, often claiming that work meetings or urgent projects kept him away. At first, Anna brushed it off. After all, she was busy too, and she understood the demands of his job. But his absences became more frequent, and when he was home, he seemed distant, his laughter less genuine, his touch less tender. Anna convinced herself it was just a rough patch, the kind of strain every marriage went through. She reasoned that once they had more time, when they were more established in their careers, their connection would return to the passionate and loving bond it had once been. Her optimism began to waver when Diana Shaw, the head of Westfield Realty, started to insert herself into their lives. Diana had always been a commanding presence at work, someone Anna admired for her sharp mind and unwavering confidence. But Diana's attention to Ryan during company events felt too personal. At first, Anna dismissed it as professional friendliness, but she couldn't ignore the way Diana's hand would linger on Ryan's arm during conversations, or how their laughter seemed to exclude everyone else. Then came the late nights. Ryan began spending more time at Diana's office, supposedly helping her oversee a series of renovations for a new property. The explanations he offered felt rehearsed, vague, and increasingly hollow. Anna's gut told her something was wrong, but she pushed the thought aside. After all, she had no proof, only a growing sense of unease. By the summer of 2014, the cracks in their marriage were undeniable. Anna would sit alone in their meticulously decorated living room, wine glass in hand, wondering how they had drifted so far apart. The laughter that once filled their home was replaced by silence, and the warmth she used to feel in Ryan's presence was now a cold void. She tried to talk to him, to bridge the growing chasm, but her efforts were met with vague reassurances and distracted smiles. The realization that something was deeply wrong was like watching a slow-moving storm gather on the horizon. Anna knew that if she didn't confront it, the storm would consume everything they had built. But she wasn't ready to face it, not yet. She still held on to the faint hope that the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had once made her feel like the center of his world, was still there somewhere beneath the distance and lies. For now, Anna clung to the memory of their happier days, even as those memories began to feel like a cruel illusion. By late August 2014, Anna Harper's nagging suspicions had grown into an unbearable weight. The signs were no longer subtle. Ryan's late nights had become routine, his explanations increasingly thin. He was always helping Diana with renovations or catching up on paperwork at her office. His phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now guarded like a secret. Even his behavior at home had shifted. He was irritable, evasive, and seemed almost relieved when Anna didn't press him for details. But the moment that shattered her denial came on a mundane Tuesday evening. Anna had just returned home after a long day of showing properties. She dropped her keys onto the entryway table and noticed Ryan's phone, carelessly left behind for the first time in weeks. It sat on the counter, screen dimmed, a beacon of temptation she could no longer resist. Her heart pounded as she reached for it, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. What am I even looking for? She asked herself. Do I really want to know? Her fingers hesitated before unlocking the phone, a password she knew from years of trust, now repurposed as a key to potential betrayal. At first, she found nothing unusual, emails from colleagues, a few texts with his brother. But then she saw it, an unread message from Diana Shaw. The preview alone made her stomach churn. "I can't stop thinking about last night." Anna's chest tightened as she opened the thread. The conversation unfolded before her like a slow-motion car crash, intimate, suggestive messages laced with inside jokes, private nicknames, and plans that left no room for misinterpretation. There were mentions of late-night meetings that had nothing to do with work, and even photographs of Diana, casual yet calculated, that made Anna feel sick to her core. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Ryan hadn't just strayed, he'd given pieces of himself to another woman, pieces that once belonged to Anna alone. The depth of their connection, their ease with one another, made her feel like a stranger in her own marriage. Anna sat at the kitchen table, phone still in her trembling hands. She felt a wave of emotions crash over her: anger, humiliation, heartbreak. She wanted to scream, to cry, to confront Ryan the moment he walked through the door. But as the initial shock wore off, a new emotion took its place: determination. Confrontation wouldn't be enough. She didn't want apologies or excuses. She wanted justice. She wanted control over the chaos that had invaded her life. Over the next few weeks, Anna transformed her pain into a quiet resolve. She began documenting everything: screenshots of messages, notes about Ryan's absences, and even receipts she found tucked into his jacket pockets from fancy restaurants she'd never been to. Every detail added to the growing arsenal she was building. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about ensuring that neither Ryan nor Diana could deny their betrayal when the time came. At work, Anna played her role perfectly. She smiled through meetings, nodded at Diana's instructions, and even laughed at her jokes. But every interaction was laced with an undercurrent of loathing. Diana, oblivious to Anna's knowledge, continued to act as if she were untouchable, commanding the room with her sharp wit and exuding an air of superiority that made Anna's blood boil. At home, Ryan seemed blissfully unaware of Anna's growing coldness. His guard was down, his lies so frequent that they'd become second nature. He didn't notice the way Anna's eyes lingered on him, studying every word, every move, as if she were piecing together a puzzle. By October, Anna had everything she needed. Her plan was no longer a vague idea but a carefully orchestrated blueprint. She wouldn't confront them in private, that would be too easy for them to escape or deny. No, the truth deserved a stage, and Anna knew just the place: the Harper family's annual Thanksgiving reunion. With the entire family present, and Diana as an invited guest, there would be no running, no hiding, and no rewriting the narrative. As she poured herself into the plan, Anna began to notice something strange. Beneath the rage and heartbreak, she felt a flicker of power. For the first time in months, she wasn't the victim of Ryan and Diana's choices. She was in control, and the thought steadied her like an anchor in a storm. When Ryan asked her one evening if she was okay, she looked up from her glass of wine and gave him a soft smile. "I'm fine," she said, her voice calm and steady. He didn't question it, and she didn't elaborate. But inside, she was anything but fine. Inside, she was a tempest, and soon, they would feel the full force of the storm she was about to unleash. By the time November rolled around, Anna Harper's plan was no longer just an idea, it was a meticulous strategy. Every piece was in place, every detail accounted for. She had gathered enough evidence to ensure that Ryan and Diana couldn't wriggle their way out of the truth. But as Anna delved deeper into their betrayal, she stumbled upon something far darker: secrets that extended beyond her marriage and into the very fabric of her family. The upcoming Thanksgiving reunion at her parents' home presented the perfect stage. It was tradition for the Harper family to host an extravagant gathering, with relatives from across Rosewood and beyond converging under one roof. This year, Anna insisted on inviting Diana as a gesture of gratitude for all the support she had given to the family through Anna's career. Ryan eagerly seconded the idea, never suspecting the real reason behind Anna's suggestion. In the weeks leading up to the event, Anna refined her arsenal. She compiled a file that included screenshots of incriminating messages between Ryan and Diana, photos of Ryan leaving Diana's office late at night, receipts from romantic dinners and hotel stays, notes documenting Ryan's frequent absences and their flimsy excuses. The file was damning. But Anna didn't stop there. She wanted to expose not only their affair but also the toxic dynamic that had enabled it. Her plan was simple yet devastating. After dinner, with the entire family gathered in the living room, she would present the evidence. No shouting, no theatrics, just cold, irrefutable truth. As Anna reviewed her file one last time, something caught her attention, an old contract for a high-profile property Diana had secured years ago. It was one of Westfield Realty's most lucrative deals, and Anna remembered hearing about it even before she joined the firm. But something about the dates didn't align with Diana's timeline of success. Curious, Anna began digging deeper, accessing archived company files and public records. What she found left her reeling. Diana's rapid ascent at Westfield Realty had been far from clean. Documents revealed that she had funneled money from company accounts into shell corporations to fund her projects. These actions weren't just unethical, they were illegal. Worse, it appeared that Ryan had unknowingly played a role. Several of his construction projects had been funded by these illicit accounts, tying him to Diana's web of corruption. Anna realized the gravity of what she'd uncovered. Diana wasn't just a mistress, she was a manipulator, using Ryan as a pawn to cover her tracks. But the more Anna uncovered, the more she began to see a connection between Diana's actions and her own family. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. While searching through old family records for the reunion slideshow, Anna stumbled upon a photograph of Diana, taken years ago, long before Anna had joined Westfield Realty. In the photo, Diana stood beside Anna's father, Thomas Harper, at a charity gala. The way they stood, the closeness of their smiles, it wasn't the pose of mere acquaintances. Anna's mother, Linda, had always spoken highly of Diana, but she never mentioned this connection. Digging further, Anna discovered that Diana's first major real estate opportunity had been co-sponsored by Thomas. Her father had not only helped launch Diana's career but had also maintained a professional, and possibly personal, relationship with her for decades. The revelation sent Anna spiraling. Was her father complicit in Diana's schemes? Did her mother know? How deep did this connection go, and how had it remained hidden for so long? As the reunion approached, Anna felt the weight of not just her plan but the tangled web of lies and secrets surrounding her family. Her betrayal by Ryan was no longer an isolated act, it was part of a larger narrative of deception and corruption that had infected her life at every level. Still, Anna resolved to proceed with her plan. She would expose Ryan and Diana for their betrayal, but she also intended to confront her parents. Her father's involvement with Diana, no matter how innocent or well-intentioned, had enabled a woman who had destroyed Anna's marriage. On the eve of the reunion, Anna stood in her parents' living room, rehearsing what she would say. She pictured the looks on their faces, Ryan's shock, Diana's fury, her mother's disbelief, and her father's shame. The thought both terrified and exhilarated her. For the first time in months, Anna felt truly in control. Her pain, her humiliation, it had all been transformed into something sharp and purposeful. No longer a victim, she was ready to reveal the truth, no matter the cost. The storm she had been holding back was about to break. And when it did, it wouldn't just sweep away her husband and his mistress, it would shake the very foundation of her family. The Harper family home glowed warmly in the crisp November air, its windows spilling golden light onto the leaf-strewn lawn. Inside, the atmosphere was a lively cacophony of laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversation. Thanksgiving was in full swing, and for the Harpers, it was a grand affair. Cousins exchanged stories over drinks, children ran through the halls, and Linda Harper, ever the gracious host, orchestrated the evening with practiced charm. Anna Harper sat in the corner of the living room, her glass of wine untouched. She watched Ryan as he moved through the room, his easy laugh and confident demeanor masking the web of lies she was about to expose. Across the room, Diana Shaw sat with her usual air of poise, commanding attention even in a casual setting. She exchanged pleasantries with Anna's parents, her voice smooth and assured, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The dinner had been served, plates cleared, and desserts enjoyed. Now, the family settled into the living room for the usual post-dinner tradition, stories, laughter, and gratitude. But Anna had other plans. She stood, her heart pounding but her expression calm. "Before we get into the usual reminiscing," she began, her voice steady, "I'd like to share something I've been working on. It's important." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Anna. Ryan's brows furrowed slightly, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Diana, ever confident, leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a faint smile as if to say, "Let's see what you've got." Anna walked to the center of the room, holding a folder in her hands. She opened it deliberately, pulling out the first set of papers. "Over the past few months, I've noticed some inconsistencies," she said, her gaze sweeping the room. "In my marriage. In my work. And in the people I thought I could trust." Ryan shifted in his seat, his discomfort now palpable. Diana's smile faltered slightly, but she maintained her composed exterior. "What I found," Anna continued, her voice gaining strength, "is that my husband and my boss have been having an affair." Gasps erupted around the room. Linda Harper's hand flew to her chest, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. Jason Harper, Anna's brother, sat forward in his chair, his jaw tightening. Thomas Harper, usually stoic, looked down, his expression unreadable. Ryan shot to his feet. "Anna, this is insane." "Sit down," Anna cut him off, her tone sharp and commanding. Her words silenced him, and he sank back into his seat, his face red with embarrassment. Anna turned to Diana, holding her gaze. "And you," she said, her voice cold, "you didn't just betray me. You used my husband. You manipulated him into helping you cover up your crimes." Diana's composure cracked, her eyes narrowing. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Anna countered, holding up a stack of papers. "Bank statements. Emails. Records of money funneled from Westfield Realty into shell companies tied to your name. And Ryan's projects, funded with money that didn't belong to you." The room fell into stunned silence as Anna laid the evidence on the coffee table. The proof was undeniable. Ryan buried his face in his hands, his bravado crumbling. Diana, however, stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is a lie," Diana snapped, her voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about," Anna retorted. "And so does the board at Westfield Realty. I've already sent them copies of this. The investigation has already started." The color drained from Diana's face, but her fury remained. "You think you can ruin me?" she hissed, taking a step toward Anna. "I don't need to ruin you," Anna replied, her voice calm. "You've done that yourself." The room erupted into chaos. Linda Harper tried to calm the shouting, Jason stood to block Diana from advancing on Anna, and Ryan mumbled incoherent denials. Thomas Harper remained silent, his face pale. But before anyone could regain control, Diana's anger boiled over. "You don't know what you're dealing with," she shouted, her voice trembling with rage. Her eyes darted to the kitchen, where a knife sat on the counter. Without thinking, she lunged. The moment seemed to stretch, time slowing as Diana's hand reached for the knife. Anna stepped back instinctively, her heart pounding. Jason shouted, moving to intercept her, but it was too late. Diana grabbed the blade, her eyes wild. "Enough!" Diana screamed, pointing the knife at Anna. "You've taken everything from me." Chaos erupted as family members yelled in panic, but in her rage, Diana miscalculated. Her high heels caught on the edge of the rug, and she stumbled forward. The knife, gleaming in the warm light, slipped from her hand as she fell. A sickening thud silenced the room. When it was over, Diana lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath her. The knife, still in her grip, had pierced her abdomen. Her breaths were shallow, her once commanding presence reduced to vulnerability. Anna stood frozen, her mind racing to process what had just happened. The room was silent except for the gasps of horror and the muffled cries of Linda and other family members. Ryan knelt by Diana, his face pale, but it was clear there was nothing he could do. In the span of minutes, the truth Anna had fought so hard to reveal had spiraled into something far darker. The night that was supposed to free her from lies and betrayal had descended into chaos and tragedy, leaving a permanent scar on the Harper family. The Harper family living room, once vibrant with Thanksgiving laughter, now stood silent except for the faint, labored breaths coming from Diana Shaw. She lay sprawled on the hardwood floor, the gleaming knife still lodged in her abdomen. A pool of crimson began to spread around her, staining the festive rug beneath. The gravity of what had just occurred rendered everyone speechless, their faces masks of shock and horror. Anna Harper remained frozen, her mind racing but unable to grasp the enormity of the moment. Just moments ago, she had been in control, carefully orchestrating the exposure of Ryan and Diana's betrayal. Now, everything had unraveled in the worst possible way. "Diana," Ryan choked out, dropping to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her wound, unsure of what to do. "Stay with me. Stay with me." His voice cracked, the bravado he always carried now replaced with panic and fear. Diana's emerald eyes, once so piercing and calculating, fluttered open briefly. Her gaze landed on Anna, not with hatred or malice, but with something softer, perhaps regret, perhaps resignation. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something, but all that came out was a faint, gurgling gasp. "Someone call an ambulance." Jason Harper shouted, breaking the stunned silence. He reached for his phone, his hands trembling as he dialed 911. Linda Harper sobbed uncontrollably, clutching her chest as Thomas Harper stood stiffly beside her, his face pale and unreadable. Anna's mind snapped back into focus. She moved toward Diana instinctively but stopped a few feet away, her body trembling. "I didn't want this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want this to happen. The knife. The fall. The blood. It had all happened so quickly, too quickly for anyone to react." Diana had lunged at her in a blind rage, but her own momentum and a misstep on the edge of the rug had been her undoing. Anna replayed the scene in her head, trying to convince herself, and anyone who might ask later, that it had been an accident. But the weight of the moment bore down on her, and a creeping sense of guilt clawed at her chest. The paramedics arrived minutes later, their presence cutting through the suffocating tension. They worked quickly, assessing Diana's condition, but the looks exchanged between them were grave. One of them turned to the family. "We'll do everything we can," he said, though his tone offered little hope. As Diana was lifted onto the stretcher, her bloodied hand reached out weakly, grabbing the sleeve of Ryan's shirt. Her lips moved, forming words so faint they were almost inaudible. "Your fault," she rasped, her voice barely more than a whisper. Then, with one final exhale, her hand went limp, and the life drained from her body. The room descended into chaos. Linda wailed, collapsing into Thomas's arms, while Jason stood shell-shocked by the door. Ryan sat frozen on the floor, staring at his blood-stained hands. No, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. No, no, no. This wasn't supposed to happen. Anna stood apart from the others, her arms wrapped around herself as though trying to shield herself from the reality crashing down around her. The plan she had so carefully crafted, the evidence she had painstakingly gathered, none of it mattered now. What should have been a moment of catharsis had turned into a tragedy. The police arrived soon after, their flashing lights illuminating the Harper home like a crime scene from a television drama. Officers began taking statements, cordoning off the area, and photographing the scene. Diana's body, now covered with a white sheet, was carried out on a gurney, leaving behind an eerie silence. Ryan was the first to break. As an officer questioned him about the events leading up to Diana's death, his composure shattered. "It's my fault," he said, his voice shaking. "She wouldn't have been here if it weren't for me." The officer raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" Ryan buried his face in his hands. She used me. I helped her cover things up, money, contracts, everything. I didn't think it would come to this. I didn't think she would." His voice cracked, and he shook his head violently. "I didn't mean for her to die." Anna watched from across the room, her emotions a volatile mix of anger, pity, and exhaustion. Ryan's confession was hollow to her ears. He wasn't grieving Diana, he was mourning the destruction of the facade he had built, the one Anna had just obliterated. As the night dragged on, Anna noticed her father standing apart from the rest of the family. He stared out the window, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. Something about his posture struck her as odd, too rigid, too composed for a man who had just witnessed such a horrific event. She approached him cautiously. "Dad," she said softly, her voice cutting through the quiet. "What's going on? Why aren't you saying anything?" Thomas turned to her, his face lined with weariness. He opened his mouth as if to speak but hesitated. "Finally," he said, "not everything is as simple as it seems, Anna." His words sent a chill down her spine. Before she could press him further, an officer called her over for questioning, and Thomas turned back to the window, leaving her with more questions than answers. By the time the house emptied of police and paramedics, the Harper family was left with nothing but silence and the lingering echoes of a night that had spiraled far beyond anyone's control. Diana was gone, Ryan's secrets were out, and Anna's carefully planned reckoning had turned into a nightmare. As Anna sat alone in the living room, staring at the blood-stained floor, she realized something devastating: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the fallout that would ripple through her life, and her family, for years to come. The morning after Thanksgiving, the Harper family home no longer exuded warmth. Instead, it stood as a chilling reminder of the chaos that had unfolded the night before. Yellow police tape cordoned off the living room, now a crime scene. The bloodstains on the rug and hardwood floor had darkened overnight, silent witnesses to the tragedy. Anna Harper sat at the dining room table, staring blankly at her untouched cup of coffee. Sleep had eluded her, and her mind was a jumble of guilt, fear, and exhaustion. Across the table, Ryan sat hunched over, his face buried in his hands. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by a hollow, broken shell of a man. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional sound of Linda Harper sobbing upstairs. The police returned that morning, ready to piece together the events leading to Diana Shaw's death. 2 officers began interviewing family members, while detectives scoured the home for evidence. Anna was the first to be questioned. Anna sat across from the detective, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She recounted the events of the night before with a calmness that surprised even herself. She explained how she had confronted Ryan and Diana with evidence of their affair and Diana's financial misconduct. She described Diana's outburst, her attempt to attack Anna with the knife, and the tragic accident that followed. "Did you provoke her?" the detective asked, his tone neutral but probing. "No," Anna replied firmly. "I told the truth." She couldn't handle it. I didn't touch her, I swear. The detective nodded, making notes. You said she slipped? Yes, Anna said, her voice wavering slightly. She tripped on the edge of the rug. It all happened so fast. Her account matched the preliminary findings. There were no signs of a struggle, no defensive wounds on Diana or Anna. The evidence supported Anna's claim that the death was accidental, but the tension in the room made it clear that the case was far from closed. Meanwhile, Ryan's interview took a different turn. Overwhelmed by guilt and the pressure of the investigation, he confessed to his involvement in Diana's financial schemes. She used me, Ryan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. She said it was harmless. She made it sound like just a workaround to get projects approved faster. The detective pressed him for details, and Ryan unraveled further. He described how Diana had funneled money from Westfield Realty into fake accounts, using it to fund personal ventures, including some of Ryan's construction projects. Ryan had signed documents without fully understanding their implications, trusting Diana's assurances. Did you benefit financially from this? The detective asked. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. Yes. But I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late. His confession added a new layer to the investigation. While Diana's death was ruled accidental, the financial fraud she orchestrated, and Ryan's role in it, would have serious consequences. As the police wrapped up their initial inquiries, tensions within the Harper family reached a boiling point. Linda Harper, who had idolized Diana, refused to believe the accusations against her. This is all a misunderstanding, Linda insisted, her voice shaking with anger. Diana wasn't a criminal. She was a friend, a mentor. Mom, stop. Jason Harper snapped, his patience worn thin. You think Anna made all this up? You think the police are wrong? Thomas Harper remained silent throughout the argument, his face drawn and pale. Anna watched him carefully, remembering his cryptic words from the night before. She couldn't shake the feeling that her father knew more about Diana than he was letting on. Finally, Anna confronted him. Dad, what was your connection to her? Why did she have that photo with you? What aren't you telling us? Thomas sighed heavily, running a hand through his thinning hair. It's not what you think, he said. I helped her once, a long time ago. She was just starting out in real estate, and I gave her some advice. That's all. But Anna didn't believe him. The unease in his voice, the way he avoided her gaze, it all pointed to something deeper. Whatever secrets Thomas held, Anna knew they wouldn't stay buried for long. News of Diana Shaw's death spread quickly through Rosewood, a town where gossip traveled faster than the morning paper. The Harper family, once admired as pillars of the community, now found themselves at the center of a scandal. Neighbors whispered about the affair, the fraud, and the shocking conclusion of the Thanksgiving dinner. Anna avoided leaving the house, unwilling to face the judgmental stares and whispered conversations. Ryan, on the other hand, was forced to step into the spotlight. The investigation into Diana's fraud revealed the extent of his involvement, and he became the target of both legal scrutiny and public outrage. By the end of December, the investigation concluded. Diana Shaw's death was officially ruled an accident, an unfortunate end to a volatile confrontation. Anna was cleared of any wrongdoing, though the emotional scars remained. Ryan, however, wasn't so lucky. His confession, combined with evidence of his participation in Diana's schemes, led to his arrest. Facing charges of fraud and embezzlement, he accepted a plea deal, resulting in a reduced sentence but effectively ending his career and reputation. As the dust settled, Anna found herself alone in the house she and Ryan had once shared. The silence was oppressive, but it was also a relief. For the first time in months, she wasn't living under the weight of lies. But the cost of the truth had been steep, too steep. She thought about Diana's final moments, the rage in her eyes, the words she had tried to say. And she thought about Ryan, broken and humiliated, paying the price for his betrayal. There was no satisfaction in their downfall, only an overwhelming sense of loss. The investigation was over, but for Anna, the aftermath was just beginning. The truth had come out, but it had left her life in pieces. And now, she had to figure out how to put them back together. The chill of early February hung in the air as Anna Harper stepped out of the courthouse, her breath visible in the frosty morning light. She clutched the finalized divorce papers in one hand, the other tucked into the pocket of her coat. The day was starkly quiet, a contrast to the whirlwind of chaos that had consumed her life over the past months. Yet, for the first time in a long while, Anna felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in what seemed like ages: peace. The fallout from Thanksgiving had left Anna reeling. Her carefully constructed life, her marriage, her career, her family, had crumbled in ways she never thought possible. But as the weeks turned into months, she realized that the destruction wasn't entirely a loss. It was an opportunity to rebuild, to let go of what had been holding her back, and to find a version of herself she had long buried under layers of duty and appearances. Anna sold the house she had shared with Ryan. The thought of staying in a place so filled with memories, both joyful and painful, was unbearable. Instead, she found a cozy apartment closer to the city, a space that was entirely her own. It was small but bright, with sunlight streaming through the windows every morning. It wasn't the life she had planned, but it was a fresh start, and that was enough. Her work at Westfield Realty also took a turn. With Diana gone, the firm went through a period of upheaval as new leadership took over and the investigation into financial misconduct concluded. Despite the turmoil, Anna found herself thriving. She earned the respect of her colleagues not just for her professionalism, but for her resilience in the face of scandal. Slowly, she began to reclaim her career on her own terms, without the shadow of Diana looming over her. Forgiveness, however, was harder to come by. Anna struggled to reconcile her emotions toward Ryan, whose betrayal had cut the deepest. Part of her wanted to hate him for the lies, the deceit, the way he had jeopardized everything they had built together. But another part of her recognized his brokenness, his weakness, and the ways Diana had manipulated him. Ultimately, Anna decided to forgive, not for Ryan's sake, but for her own. Carrying the weight of anger only tethered her to a past she was determined to leave behind. Forgiving him didn't mean forgetting or excusing what he had done. It meant freeing herself from the pain he had caused, allowing her to move forward without the burden of resentment. The Harper family, too, had been irrevocably changed. Linda Harper's idealized view of Diana shattered completely, leaving her grappling with guilt for the way she had dismissed Anna's concerns. Thomas Harper, though his connection to Diana remained shrouded in ambiguity, became more introspective, spending quiet evenings on the porch, seemingly lost in thought. The family gatherings that had once been so lively now carried an air of tension, as if everyone was waiting for another secret to surface. Anna's relationship with her parents was strained but not broken. Over time, they began to rebuild trust, finding new ways to connect that didn't revolve around appearances or expectations. Her bond with her brother Jason, however, grew stronger. He became her confidant, the one constant in a world that had been turned upside down. By the spring of 2016, Anna found herself in a place she hadn't expected: hopeful. She took up painting, something she hadn't done since college, and found solace in the quiet moments spent blending colors and creating something new. She began volunteering at a local shelter, helping women who had faced betrayal and abuse rebuild their lives. In their stories, she saw reflections of her own journey, and a reminder of how far she had come. On a bright April morning, as she walked through the park near her apartment, Anna paused to watch the cherry blossoms swaying in the breeze. For the first time in years, she wasn't consumed by what had been or what might have been. She was simply present, embracing the beauty of the moment. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And that, she realized, was more than enough. Anna's story is one of betrayal, resilience, and rebirth. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a chance to start over, to rebuild, to let go, and to rediscover who you truly are. What do you think about Anna's journey? Have you ever faced a betrayal that forced you to reinvent yourself? Do you believe forgiveness is necessary for healing, or is moving on enough? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales of resilience and transformation.